A very good evening and welcome to Primetime News, live here on News First. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
Good evening and welcome. I am Shayan Jirampati and these are our headlines.
Britain launches investigation into possibility of human waste in garbage containers in the Colombo port. Foreign media claims mortuary waste among the garbage as well. Attempts by UN Special Rapporteur to meet judges in Sri Lanka prevented by Speaker. Opposition calls for acting Foreign Secretary to be summoned before Parliament. Gotabaya Rajapaksa returns to the island after medical treatment.
අපේ ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂකයා ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා තමයි.
The Telegraph in the UK reported that the British government has launched an investigation into the containers sent to Sri Lanka as they appear to contain human remains disguised as recyclable metals. AFP also reported that the containers carried loads of hazardous mortuary and clinical waste.
Several foreign media organizations, including the Telegraph and Daily Mail news sites in the United Kingdom, France's AFP and Business Insider have reported on the garbage imported to Sri Lanka. The Telegraph said the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs was investigating reports that human organs and body parts were inside the container, but said it was yet to be approached by the Sri Lankan authorities. Newsfirst reached out to the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs in the United Kingdom. The department said they are awaiting the response of the relevant Sri Lankan authorities as they have contacted them for further information. The report added that inside the crates, customs officials found the extremely hazardous materials mixed in with mattresses, plastics and clinical waste. Quoting Sri Lanka's Central Environmental Authority, the report added that the waste material brought to the country under the guise of mattresses from the UK is extremely hazardous. Meanwhile, the Surakimu Sri Lanka National Movement staged a demonstration opposite the British High Commission in Colombo and handed over an epistle. The Board of Investment is now trying not to take the responsibility. It is very clear that the team, including the chairman of the BOI, Mangalayapa, Ranil Wickramasinghe and Malik Samaravikrama, are behind this. The people of this country have a strong backbone. They love the country. We do not worry about Britain but about Sri Lanka. We are demonstrating opposite the British High Commission to urge them to take their waste back. They provided us a solution and it's fair. After the defence chief refused it, another responsible officer came here. A cordial discussion was held with him. We started an investigation even before the Sri Lankan government did. We will act against the UK company. We will also investigate as to how this took place within the Sri Lankan government. They promised to inform our organisation with regard to the investigations. However, it does not seem like the Central Environmental Authority has made an effort to resolve the garbage crisis. Haley's company has not obtained a permit. They have to obtain a permit from the BOI when doing something of this nature. So the Central Environmental Authority is hoping to take legal action against the company in question. We have also informed to re-export the waste material in the containers and in the Katnayaka Free Trade Zone. The Central Environmental Authority is also conducting an investigation in this regard. Several reputed international media outlets are now reporting on the garbage containers in Sri Lanka. And the question that should be raised is, does this not bring disrepute to our nation? There seems to be a visible delay when it comes to enacting the law with regard to this garbage container crisis. Those responsible for taking action against these have a track record of hoodwinking the general public. During the controversial central bank bond scam, it was announced that the accounts of perpetual treasuries were frozen and that the loss could be reacquired. However, this was not the complete loss incurred by the bond scam. It should also be remembered that Singapore is not sending fugitive former governor of the central bank, Arjuna Mahendran, because Sri Lanka departed from due process in making a request for him to be sent back. However, under the FTA signed by Malik Samaravikrama, Singapore is able to send garbage to Sri Lanka. Now that the UK investigating body have also asked for the information to be provided, will the same be done and will this effort be pushed to the wayside? Will Sri Lanka again depart from due process in providing this information to the UK? Similarly, will this garbage also be dumped in Sri Lanka or sent out of the country? Will they attempt to hoodwink the general public once again without proper legal action being enacted? Does the fact that the BOI falls under Minister Malik Samaravikrama also have an impact on how events pertaining to the garbage containers are unfolding? During the time these containers were brought into the country, a close relative of Minister Malik Samaravikrama held a directorship at a company that is said to be responsible for the importation of these containers. Is the current chairman of the BOI, Mangalayapa, not speaking out against this, since these are methods used by a niche few to make money? The question arises as to whether anything better can be expected from people such as Mangalayapa, who took over a government agency even before the Parliamentary Act regarding it was approved. Should not the directors of all the companies that are involved in the garbage importation be arrested and brought before the law? Do not sell our motherland. Do not rob EPF, ETF funds. Do not turn this country into a garbage dump. Love our nation and protect it.
A debate regarding discarded material being brought into the country was held again in Parliament today.
Imagine the quantity of garbage which would have been imported into the country based on the 2013 circular. Maybe the Meethoramulla tragedy occurred as a result of this. Lives were lost. Toxic chemicals contained in these imported garbage could have caused such a tragedy because it caused somewhat of an explosion. A proper method should be set in place in order to identify those who are to be held responsible for the loss of lives and damages to property, and they should be punished. We challenge the government. Try and render the circular issued in 2013 by Mahinda Rajapaksa void. The only agreement which legalized the importation of discarded material is the Singapore Agreement.
Singapore givisuma මේ ගැසට් නිවේදනයේ අඩුවක් නැහැ. ඒක මම පිළිගන්නවා. නෑ දැන් ඔබතුමාලා මේක පටලගෙන තියෙන්නේ. මේ අය පුන කිව්වා මේ ගැසට් නිවේදනයේ පිළිබඳ ලෝකෙටම වැරදි අර්ථකථනයක් දුන්නා. රේගු සංගමය ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කරා විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ 2013 ගැසට් නිවේදනය අනුව තමයි මේක ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. ඉතින් ගැසට් නිවේදනයේ බලන්න රේගු සංගම් කියන එකද නීතිය. කොහොමද සුදේ මන්දරිතුමා ඉන්න මිනිහ දන්නේ නීතිය මොකක්ද?
I agree there is nothing wrong with this circular. There is no issue with the gazette. It does not state the customs cannot inspect containers brought under this gazette. The customs can inspect these at any given time. The issue here is that you have mixed this up with other matters. You say this is a result of the Singapore Agreement, but it is not. I saw you standing next to a pile of garbage somewhere in Thailand. Everything has been jumbled.
මිනිසුන්ට අපහාස කරන්නේ නෙමෙයි අපි නීතිමය ප්‍රශ්නයක් මතු කරේ. අද රට ගිනි ගන්නවා ආයෝජන ප්‍රවර්ධන ඇමතිවරයා විදියට. කිසිසේත්ම
I am not saying the Gazette will be nullified. I say it with responsibility. However, we intend to take action in a legal sense. If Haley's Corporation has done this intentionally, we will take action. We have provided them a grace period of 1 week to provide us with explanations, and another 3 weeks will be given to send these containers back. We will give a clear answer by tomorrow or so. If there is a cost involved in importing discarded material from England, who is bearing that cost? How much are they paying? What is the profit that can be earned by recycling the material and re-exporting it? These should be looked into. In my opinion, if you look into this, you will see a large-scale money laundering process. Those who collect waste from England and send it here deposit their money in England. The process of re-exporting is merely what we see on the surface. In actual fact, what is happening is money laundering.
This issue was brought into the spotlight by Sirasa, and they requested the government to take immediate action. It was as a result of this investigative journalism that this issue was highlighted. By today, it has become a national tragedy. While we thank them for exposing this, my personal opinion is this issue cannot be resolved by simply nullifying the Gazette. The issue is not the Gazette. The issue is whether any person carried out an illegal activity using this Gazette as a veil. If Haley's claims they accept this material as non-hazardous waste, and if the Gazette includes provisions for a value addition to occur within the free trade zone, but in the end, discarded material from morgues have been brought, someone has committed a major fraud down the line.
හැබැයි අවසානයේදී මේකේ මෝචරි වල තිබිච්ච කුණු මෙතන ගෙනලා තියෙනවා නම් කවුරු හරි ලොකු වැරද්දක් කරලා තියෙනවා. හැබැයි අද ආර්ථික
Today, at the Economic Oversight Committee, all corporations representing the government accepted that what has been brought into the country is municipality waste. In essence, they accepted it is garbage. There are 102 containers at the customs, but there is no one to claim responsibility for these containers. 875 million should be paid in demurrage costs alone for these containers. What has happened today is the containers are stored here and they claim the person who imported them has gone bankrupt. Therefore, we can't earn any money, neither can we send the containers back.
නැවත අරින්නත් බෑ. මං හිතන්නේ
I feel the money should be earned in some way, at least by freezing their assets. Even England has ordered for an inquiry to be carried out to ascertain how these discarded waste ended up here. Therefore, we have a way of solving this issue.
වන හැකියාවක් ලැබිලා තියෙනවා.
Now, the National Movement for Consumer Rights Protection today made a revelation about the garbage containers in Sri Lanka.
මේ රටට කසල
Not only the United Kingdom, even a company in France exports garbage to our country. We will soon reveal the name of the organization. This has been done using the Gazette notification. Only around 2 to 3 businessmen can fulfill these requirements. $5 million should definitely be invested. 63% of foreign investment should also be there. According to what has been revealed by the BOI and the customs, 29 containers have been re-exported. But will these businessmen make such an investment to re-export 29 containers? The Central Environmental Authority should look into this. We tell the officer in charge not to deceive us and not to hide anything from the media. We revealed yesterday that waste is being imported into Sri Lanka through the airport. The Civil Aviation Authority has been calling tenders to hand over the waste to businessmen for 3 years. They then take what's economically beneficial and the rest is burnt. This creates germs in the country.
ඉතිරි ටික තමයි අර නයිකන්දර කියලා පුච්චන්නේ. ඉතින් එතකොට ඒ තුලින් රටට විශාල විසබීජ තුනක් එන්න පුළුවන්.
News. A debate was held in Parliament today about an attempt made by UN Special Rapporteur to meet judges in the country. I inquired into the arrangements made for UN Special Rapporteur Clement Nyalit Sosivul to meet the Chief Justice and High Court judges. I am on the stance that arrangements should not have been done to arrange a meeting based on a request made by the UN Special Rapporteur. After informing the Minister of Justice and Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I have instructed them to take the required action. Therefore, I said that the meeting with the High Court judges was not held.
Based on our instructions, we have approved the appointment of the Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as someone responsible. He has now admitted that he got involved in this. We were able to present a copy of the action taken by the Additional Secretary based on the instructions passed by the Secretary to the Ministry. What is important is that Secretary to the Ministry is transferred to another department or grant us the opportunity to bring a proposal to conduct an investigation against the Secretary according to the Constitution. These are not national policies. These are stubborn actions taken by these officials. You have acted upon containing such behaviours, but the Parliament should ensure that this type of behaviour will not be repeated.
We respectfully remind the United Nations that we have to safeguard freedom of justice and ensure rule of law. Some time ago, Sri Lankan judges were taken to America for a training. According to what we heard from one of those judges, inquiries were made about the Special High Court as well. One of the judges have recorded it. So we tell America that we should respect our rule of law. This cannot be done without the approval of the former Attorney General.
I request you to appoint a select committee in Parliament and inquire from the relevant authorities to take necessary action.
A
statement about a recording of judges was made in the chambers today. I humbly make a request. If you have any information in this regard, please reveal it to us. We will then do the needful.
Since there have been similar instances before, it is important that we look into this to safeguard the independence of the judiciary. I also think it is important that a special statement is made by the Minister of Justice.
I responsibly state that none of those judges met with the Special Rapporteur. The Ministry of Justice and Foreign Affairs have been informed. I will ensure that this will not reoccur. I will present the proposal to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and discuss about the select committee during the party leaders' meeting.
මං හිතන්නේ මේ කාර්යවසම් මහත්තයා ඉන්න කාලේ ඊට පස්සේ මේ දෙවෙනිවත්
A courtesy call in the company of foreign ministry officials. අගබයි එක හම්බුණා. එතන අපි
UN Special Rapporteur on Rights to Freedom of Peaceful Assembly and of Association, Clement Nyalit Sosivul, arrived in Sri Lanka last week. The judiciary is an apex body and a pillar of democracy. What authority does the UN Special Rapporteur have to summon judges of the independent judiciary? What is the requirement to do so? Wouldn't such actions result in the image of the United Nations to deteriorate? Newsfirst is continuing to report on large-scale corruption such as the Blue Mountain property scam and the US agreements such as AXA and SOFA. There are many more information regarding these that will be reported before the people. Sri Lanka does not have binding agreements with the United Nations that would allow professionals to be summoned before UN Special Rapporteurs. However, UN Special Rapporteurs arrive in this country and summon and meet various people and hold discussions. On the contrary, SOFA and AXA are US agreements. If the UN can act in this manner without binding agreements, what would happen if or when the US agreements are signed? Isn't it not clear as to who will hold the power? If similar actions were carried out in India or Pakistan, they would have to face the full wrath of the law in those nations. Newsfirst recently exposed a large number of financial fraud allegedly committed by the company named Blue Mountain Properties under the guise of selling real estate. However, many parties who have been adversely affected by this fraud claim, although complaints have been lodged in several police stations, investigations into the incident are being conducted at snail's pace.
Blue Mountain Properties has on many occasions mortgaged the property to banks and then sold it to the public and had ultimately lost both the property and the money.
A few of us lodged a complaint at the Galle police station. The complaint was examined on the 18th of July. 2 employees of the Blue Mountain Company were also present that day. However, they are not providing a sustainable solution. They say they can release the land deeds if those who have not paid money do pay the money and those who have already paid the money pay an additional amount.
We have paid the full amount. Many people who requested for a deed in order to obtain a bank loan were given a duplicate copy. The original is not given. When we cross-reference it with the bank, the deed appears to be fake. Private banks can take over the responsibility in order to secure funds for mortgaged lands and thereafter release the land following talks with the customers. This would solve the issue in an easier process. We lodged a complaint at the Kuliyapitiya Crime Investigation Unit. We did not even receive a letter asking us to be present at a court hearing. Either return the money or give us the original and authentic deeds. Shouldn't the government intervene to provide justice to these people?
Former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was in Singapore for medical requirements, returned to the island last night. The manager in charge of the BIA stated that he touched down at the Bandaranaike International Airport on a flight from Singapore at around 11:45 p.m. A group from the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana convened a media briefing in Colombo today.
Wherever we go, people want Gotabaya Rajapaksa to be the next presidential candidate. It's not a decision that was taken at the Rajapaksa tea table. The joint opposition party leaders are having a meeting. Through that, we can identify who our presidential candidate will be. Since I'm in charge of the ladies, I go to all the events around the country. The innocent people in the villages who have a good knowledge of the political situation want Gotabaya Rajapaksa to be the presidential candidate. So Gotabaya Rajapaksa should be our presidential candidate.
Two new villages built under the Samata Sevana Yali Pibidena Udagammana program were vested with the public today. The occasion was graced by the deputy leader of the United National Party, Minister Sajith Premadasa. The two villages, which were constructed in the Kallapadu area in Karaturei Pattu, Mulethivu, have been named Udayam Nagar and Adava Nagar. While these villages consist of a total of 50 houses, a total expenditure of 26.8 million rupees has been incurred. Many people talk about unity, others talk about national security. In order for unity and national security to be upheld, you and I should have a single law to govern us, regardless of race, religion and caste. This should be felt in everybody's heart. Talking about it or penning it down won't do. I would like to state that Sajid Premadasa wholeheartedly supports this cause to create such a Sri Lanka. Minister Sajid Premadasa's name has been nominated for the upcoming presidential election. You should undoubtedly contest. Moreover, these people expect you to provide respectable solutions to the issues faced by the Tamil community.
A group of Maulavis met the chief prelate of the Malwatu chapter, Most Venerable Tibbatwave Sri Sumangala Thero, yesterday. People exercise their right to vote and appoint a government in the hope that they would make solving the problems of the general public their priority. Ironically, our Gammadda door-to-door teams came across villages where people were tangled in a web of problems spun by the politicians themselves.
Gammadda Keinketa.
The history of the village Diagaha in Matara had been a very prosperous one, with timely rains, tanks brimming with water and barns of full harvest. That was until they unveiled another one of the government's development schemes. Now the villagers are faced with a very disappointing present. The government planted acacia and pine trees around the village. The rivers and tanks in the village dried up. The soil started drying up and falling apart. Now, the villagers have to pay for the water they drink. When the Gammadda teams visited the village of Moraga Khanda, we were greeted with a sight of dilapidated houses. The landslide which occurred in 2016 buried everything the villagers owned. 23 people from the 30 families who live in this family lost their lives. 14 people of them were buried alive. The ones who lived were left only with sorrow and hope. In the village of Eratna in Kuruvita Ratnapura, when it rains, most of its roads turn into miniature rivers. Only the elders of the village know that 3 kilometers of the road that leads to this village was once laid with asphalt. The children of this village are unaware of this. These 1,000 families who live in this village have lost count of the times they requested a proper road from the authorities. The elephants who encroach the village of Teliaye have proven that they are much more smarter than the wildlife officials. Even though the wildlife officers hoodwinked the villagers by building an electric fence that does not have electricity running through it, they did not fool the elephants. As a result, the elephants have to put in no effort to enter this village.
Gammadda Keinketa.
Cabinet approval has been given to grant free on-arrival visa for tourists and have expanded the program from 39 countries to 45 in an attempt to recover faster from the April 21st attacks.
The Cabinet had earlier given approval to start the free on-arrival visa on the 1st of May, but the program was halted due to security concerns after the April 21st attacks. New countries have also been added to the list in a new cabinet memorandum presented by Minister of Tourist Development, Wildlife and Christian Religious Affairs, John Amratunga. The government is planning to launch a 1 billion rupee public relations and promotions campaign and has also taken steps to reduce taxes and fees at the airport to allow reduction of airfares to Sri Lanka.
The 58th ACI Financial Markets Association World Congress is set to be held between the 3rd of October to the 5th of October.
An event was held yesterday to raise awareness for the ACI event and to confirm the speakers who will attend the event. The speakers include Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy and Dr. Harsha De Silva. Speaking at the event, Kishu Gomes spoke about the drop in tourism after the tragic April 21st attacks and how Sri Lanka has been on the road to recovery ever since.
During the month of May, average arrivals, daily average arrivals went down to 1,200. There were a few days when we had only 950 tourists coming into the country. But by now, if we look at the last 5 days average, we are exceeding 4,500 tourists a day. So month-on-month recovery has been significant. The recovery we made in June over May was 64%, and from June to July has so far been over 50%. So it's just a matter of time that we'll be able to fully recover, and we have plans in place to make that happen.
You're watching News First. Up next is Action TV.
The Cabinet memorandum submitted by Subject Minister Ravi Karunanayake seeking approval to obtain funds from the Treasury to obtain a new building on rent basis to relocate the Ministry of Power, Energy and Business Development was turned down for a second time yesterday. The current premises, which the ministry is being housed since 2009, belongs to the Ceylon Workers' Congress, and a rent of 74 rupees is paid per square feet. Although the rent agreement on this building can be extended from the 1st of next month, the ministry intends to relocate to this premises situated in Colombo 2 by incurring a rent cost of 260 rupees per square feet per month. However, the proposal presented to the Cabinet by the subject minister clearly states that certain bid conditions of the building are not compatible by those published by the ministry. Therefore, choosing this building, which does not even fulfill bid conditions, could have been done in order to please a relevant party. In the past, a private company utilized this premises, paying a rent for a total of 38,000 square feet. Against such a backdrop, the Ministry of Power, Energy and Business Development entering into a rent agreement for 44,410 square feet is a cause for concern. These clauses included in the recommendation states that a deposit amounting for an year's rent would be paid and a total rental for 5 months upfront would also be paid, merely depicting that the subject minister's intention is to please a certain party. Had the Cabinet of Ministers approved this proposal presented by the subject minister, the amount of public funds which the Treasury would have had to release would be in excess of 200,806,000 rupees. The Minister of Finance, while opposing to release the funds from the Treasury, had reminded the Cabinet of the decision taken by the government to not spend on obtaining new buildings on rent in order to house government agencies. However, the Cabinet granted a surprising approval to the Ministry of Power yesterday. That is, to obtain the 200,806,000 from the Lanka Electricity Company or LECO. This company falls under the Ministry of Finance, and according to the good governance guidelines published by the Department of Public Enterprises, public enterprises are not permitted to incur expenditure or deploy its resources under any circumstances on behalf of the line ministry or any other government institutions. Further, since LECO is registered under the Companies Act, it has been legally prohibited to provide its resources for the benefit of others apart from its stakeholders. 54% of shares of LECO are owned by Ceylon Electricity Board, while 44% is owned by the Treasury. Thus, it is evident that the granting of Cabinet approval for the Ministry of Power to obtain these premises from the funds of LECO is merely obtaining funds from the Treasury. By obtaining an amount exceeding 200 million from LECO, which squandered around 400 million rupees in an attempt to lay underground electricity lines, isn't the ministry attempting to provide LECO with the same fate which befell the Ceylon Electricity Board? Minister of Power and Renewable Energy, for your attention.
With that, we conclude tonight's edition of Primetime News. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
And I'm Shahin Rampati. Good night and take care.